Hi guys, I'm Jay Picasso and welcome back to Tech Corner. Today we're at Metropolis Studios, Studio B, where I'm going to be discussing 5 different techniques to stay productive as a producer. The number one thing you need to know as a producer is to stay listening to music. The moment you stop listening, the moment your productivity and creativity can quickly dry up. So to have a consistent stream of new stuff coming through your ears is the number one way to make sure that you are always adapting, changing, and evolving your own sound. Also, it keeps you current and it makes you aware of what's popping in other places around the world. And it's always good to know what's popping in different places and in different scenes. So how do you find new music? Well, Spotify and Apple Music have found various ways to tap into the listener, various playlists which target your traditional listening habits, and these playlists can be instrumental to your development as a producer. So make sure that you tap in where you can. If you're not into the whole playlist thing, then just keep talking to your network. Whenever I see my friends or whenever I see other producers or any other creators in this industry, I'm always asking them what they're listening to. This is so important because whatever gives them a vibe might just give me a vibe. And if I have a high respect for this person, then the likelihood is that this music that they're listening to is influencing them and therefore influencing their creativity. So I definitely want some of that. I definitely want some of that. Yeah? So keep listening. That's the whole point. Just make sure that you're listening. Tune into whatever you can, whenever you can, and wherever possible, try to change the source from time to time. Sometimes radio, sometimes Spotify or online, sometimes YouTube, which often comes with a visual. Nowadays, sometimes what someone sent you on WhatsApp, so whatever. And another suggestion is to create a playlist for yourself. So when times are dry, when seasons are a little bit drier and creativity starts to seize up, you have this list to fall back on where you can go listen and get into some deep jams. So, number 2 on my list is to recreate. Once you've done all this listening, if you still don't find yourself with a high creative output, then what you'll want to do is start to recreate some of these sounds that you're listening to. One thing that I learned early in my career is that if I can mimic popular songs that have had, huge levels of success, if I can mimic those, then I'm well on my way to being a producer that can make #1 hits. So look into producers that create similar songs to you or similar sounds to you, or the producer that created that record that you just love, and start to unravel that record with sounds. Do the best you can to recreate all the sounds in that record and put that together. Structure it, arrange it, and before you know it, you've actually reproduced the entire song. The value here is to know the ingredients that went into that production. Just by the virtue of the fact that you have put all of these elements into play means that you have understood every single part of that production. Now, whether or not that be your own, it brings you to a certain level to have understood it, and it brings you to a certain level of creativity to have been able to recreate it in the first place. So recreation is a really valuable tool in the producer's toolkit. There are countless times when I work with rappers and singers who have, like many nowadays, gone to YouTube to find a type beat, something that they feel that they can start to write their song on. And it's at that point that they will then come to me and say, listen, this is someone else's beat. I don't want this, but I want something similar. And so even having those skills at this stage means that I can now quite easily take some elements from that song, which I feel that they're referring to, and then change some elements from that song, but knowing what I'm changing without going too far or too wide. So it becomes an invaluable resource in the producer's toolkit to be able to recreate sounds. This can go into the actual sounds themselves. Some producers are very, very skillful at recreating synths from scratch. You can use various VST programming to turn a very basic sine wave into something entirely different. And so even that exploration there will start to develop not only your ear for sounds, but will also start to add your own personal sound banks to your music. This is invaluable because now you have sounds which are completely exclusive to you. That's right, to you. So, number 3, the 5-minute beat challenge. One of the things that really helped me in my career when I came up was I participated in an event called the Jump Off. Now with the Jump Off, essentially it gave you 5 minutes in front of an audience to create a beat from scratch. You were given an a cappella with a certain tempo, the rest was completely up to you. Now what had been pre-selected for you were sounds. So you would arrive at a keyboard, have certain sounds set up, that was your options, and you would have to create a beat from scratch using these sound banks and these sound banks only. me. So how does this apply at home? Number one, go find yourself an acapella. You don't necessarily have to use an acapella, but I certainly recommend it in terms of sparking creativity without having to think too deeply about it. Also, it's just something better to rock to rather than just a click track. Find an acapella, put that into your DAW, pre-select yourself up to about 5 or 6 sounds, including drums, bass, synths, and any other sounds that you feel would fill that spectrum beautifully. So taking those sounds and that acapella, set the DAW to the appropriate tempo. At that point, give yourself 5 minutes on the clock to just create whatever comes to mind first. Don't overthink it, you don't really have time. You also don't have much time for quantization or arrangement. So try to do your best just to keep the workflow going. Within 5 minutes, you'll quickly be able to hear what it is that you've created. Take out that acapella, and before you know it, you've got a fresh instrumental from scratch. Yes, it's gonna need some work. There's no questions about that. 5 minutes is not long enough necessarily to have created a masterpiece, but from there you've at least got an idea. If you start to repeat this process on a daily or weekly basis, what you'll find is that you're able to create ideas instantly. Within 5 minutes, you're able to generate an idea. Now, what's the value of that? So, I'm in a session, I'm working with a rapper. The rapper wants to hear a beat. He doesn't want to go to YouTube. He doesn't have a beat lined up to use either. So he wants me to create something. Now, of course, it's going to take me a lot more than 5 minutes to create his beat. But if I can show him an idea within 5 minutes, he's going to have confidence in me, he's going to have confidence in the session. It also means that if it's the wrong idea and he doesn't like it, we can quickly move on to the next, meaning that the time is still well spent and he's going to leave with something that he likes. That's the point here. So, the 5-minute beat challenge, make sure you give it a go. It's something you should be doing even as a pro, just to keep the dust off. Tip number 4, upgrade your sounds. Now, whether that be using things like Splice or sample packs or just investing in new VSTs, the whole point here is that you want to continuously be upgrading your sounds. Why, Jay? Why do I want to upgrade my sounds? I'm so glad you asked. Well, the truth of the matter is, new sounds spark new ideas, new creativity. The fact of the matter is, as a creative producer, I can have maybe 10 chord progressions under my belt, nailed. Now, I can play those all on a piano and it's going to sound a certain way. My songs are always going to develop and process in a certain way. The moment I change those sounds, something else is sparked. Even the fact that you can take a set of chords, whack on an arpeggiator and it changes the feel of the song entirely. This is the value of upgrading your sounds. Now, if you don't have the budget to do something like this, there are plenty of free websites. Yes, that's right, free websites for you to download pro sounds from. Yes, it requires you to be a little bit resourceful, but the fact of the matter is that those sounds are out there and they're available to you now. If you do have a budget, the one thing that I recommend is always trying to go off someone else's recommendation. There are millions of sounds out there, millions of VSTs, millions of brilliant sound packs which can be sold to you in an instant. I just have to swipe on my Instagram and everyone's trying to sell me a new VST. But what I commonly do is go off recommendation of some of my peers and some of the people that are inside my music network. If they have a good sound that they like and I've never heard it before, the likelihood is that I'm going to trust their opinion and perhaps invest in that sound or at least try it out. There's been numerous occasions where I've had to borrow someone's bit of gear just to see if I like it. Within a couple of weeks, I've made a decision about whether it's worth investing in. If so, I'll go pick it up. If not, then I've decided that it's not for me and I haven't lost any money. So, upgrade your sound. Make sure that you're doing that regularly. Every year, even if you're busy, make sure that you've changed or adapted or thrown something else into your setup sound-wise that can help you evolve as a musician. It's not all about keeping up with trends. For those of you that make like old school music, it's not about that. However, there are still things unraveling sound-wise in today's market that can help and further your sound too. Don't be blind to it. Just take some time out every so often to upgrade your sounds and adapt your sound libraries. Simples. The last point here, number 5, collaboration. Collaboration is actually the number one thing that a producer needs. That's not to say that you can't create fantastic beats and that you don't create fantastic instrumentals. If that's your lane, then run at it. But still, producers require collaboration. Even at the point of you creating an instrumental, it's not going to go anywhere unless you collaborate with a company to align it with a television program or an advert or an artist. So the fact of the matter is that we need to collaborate. Now, for the more typical producers who are producing solely for artists, this is massive. How do you collaborate with someone that you don't know? Now, for those of you with musical circles and other people around you, just tap into that. The one thing I would say about this type of setup is try not to put too much burden on the outcome of the song initially. Yes, at pro levels, when you start to collaborate with people, there becomes this expectation that the song should be fantastic, it should be a money-making hit, no questions asked. However, if you're new to the whole collaborative experience, then I would certainly recommend taking that pressure off and just get used to the fact that you are working with someone else. That in itself is a skill. Okay, because sometimes even if you are a great producer, but you're also collaborating with someone else who's great, and there are two opposing opinions, without knowing when to concede, when to push, when to hold back, when to approach, this can become a problem. So collaboration in itself becomes the skill. So don't worry about the outcome of the song, just worry about how to work with another person. Now, for those producers who are always working with other people and collaboration's nothing new to you, then what I would suggest is try to work with another producer. Even this starts to change your role, starts to change the way that you think about the song and the way that that song unravels and is arranged. Using another producer's influence can be really instrumental in adapting your own ears to what other people might hear and other directions in which someone else might take the song. It can work in numerous ways. You can perhaps ask someone to send you some drums and you can start to work the top lines and the bass line off of something like that. Alternatively, drums could be your thing. So perhaps you want to send someone the drums and have them work some of the top lines and stuff like that. Now, this is one of the easiest ways to start off a collaboration. Again, don't worry so much about the outcome, just worry about making sure that you have something to contribute and that you are filling a position and a seat within that collaboration. There's several times when I've shown up at studio sessions and I'm not the only producer there. I quickly have to find where it is that I fall in line in that given session. There's no point in all of us clashing heads on how we think the bass should sound when no one's really covering what the keys are doing. So then it's my position, my time to say, do you know what's needed here? Someone needs to look at this section or someone needs to look at something else. It's not about me muscling in and making sure I'm the producer on this record. It's my hit or no one's hit. Absolutely not. In collaborative circumstances, be of assistance to that product any way you can. So that's my last tip. Hopefully that's been of some help to you guys, and hopefully you guys are still managing to stay productive in this crazy time that we're in anyway. So make sure you tune in to Tech Corner next week where Shay will be back. Thanks for tuning in. I'm Jay Picasso. Have a great week and I'll see you guys soon. Peace.